You're live.
Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I'm here in half burnout, out of power, half out of water. It's a third world country here in California, and in more places than not. It is. I can't wait to move. I can't. I can't. Glory Jones will not be with us this evening. Her collegiate and what athletic what are they? I guess commitments. Yeah. Are preventing her from being on the program. Miss her terribly. We'll see her Sunday morning. It'll be fantastic. Jared Beck will be back on the program Sunday. Make sure you're there for that. Joining me today for the first time on the show, and I'm stoked for this. I've been looking forward to it for most of the week. I think you're originally from the UK, but investigative journalist extraordinaire, recent frequent contributor to Whitney's website Unlimited Hangout, and apparently cannabis enthusiast Johnny Vedmore.
Yo,
how you doing, man?
Life's good. You know, it's long days, hot days. It's good. It's good. It's good. You're right. I am originally from the UK. I'm from a place called Wales, which is like a mountainous region on the side of England that's been colonized for 500 years by our next door neighbors, where they've, of course, done lots of bad things. We're probably one of the last colonies, really, apart from the financial ones. But we're one of the proper last colonies still to get free and independent, like Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are all rising up now. You can feel it in the air there.
Really, I mean, because you hear about Scotland, and there's some, incredibly valid arguments to be made for Scottish independence. The SND normally doesn't make those very good arguments.
Suspicious, eh? Suspicious. Like almost like they want to scupper their own plans. Like they're on the other side. Who knows? Who knows?
Right? They're like the DSA is here, but politically opposite. On the other side of the political spectrum. But certainly like one of those. Let's take all of this, resentment and energy, and put it into a movement that is going absolutely nowhere.
Oh, energy. Putting energy into movements has been going on for a long time. I mean, that's been happening for a long time. There's some really good. I was thinking just the other day about how they got all of the Q people to focus their energy. Like how do you come up with that plan? How do you come up with that plan to kind of get everybody who believes and strongly in something, get them to be on your side and do your will and your bidding? I mean, directing energy is one of the things that the malevolent forces out there know how to do really well. And we've got loads of pent up angry energy. It's a constant war of separation and, divide and conquer all of the time nowadays. We're pitted against each other all over the place. And SNP, I mean, that's the Scottish National Party. They were a party who at one point were like the bastions of hope for Britain. They were the ones who told the honest truth, but they really had easy jobs. What they did is just sat and kept the status quo going, and pretended they were fighting for Scottish independence. But it's too nice to be sitting in the pocket of England, I think. At least
there are a ridiculous amount of parallels now, and I guess you can look at it and go, okay, well, they're Five Eyes countries, so they're probably going to be operating off of the same playbook. But just in this last like 4-year period of extreme accelerationism that we've been living in since like Trump got elected, Boris Johnson came into I don't know, I guess you would call it power. Although I'm not entirely sure.
Well, you got put up under the strings, and the other people started moving, Boris. That's it.
You couldn't pick a more puppet-like creature just on base appearance than Boris Johnson.
I've been meaning to do a story about the history of Boris Johnson for a while, because some of his early history is really interesting stuff. He was sent to a boarding school called Ashdown House with his brother and his sister when his mum had a nervous breakdown back in the 70s, and the headmaster of that home had been abusing boys for the entire time he was headmaster or deputy head. In other schools he did the same. And when Boris Johnson and his brother and his sister got moved there, which was originally all a boys' school, but they moved Boris Johnson's sister there, the headmaster was told he wasn't allowed to touch the boys anymore, and it stopped.
So Bojo has juice like that, or Bojo.
Early on, earlier on, his father obviously had some sway. I mean, his history is interesting because he was born in New York, I think, and he of course got British citizenship because his father's British and his mother's British. But there's a lot going on in that history, a lot of really dark stuff. And Boris Johnson, well, he's just a tool. He's one of the many tools for the establishment. He, I think he jumped on the Brexit bandwagon so he could take it over really, and stop a real independence from a European state from actually happening. So, and that's what we're seeing now within the policies that they're bringing out. They're crunching down Brexit slowly and saying, oh, when we can't do this and we can't do this. So it won't actually be what the people voted for by the end of it. Not that I really support it.
I've tried to understand to the best of my ability as somebody way outside of the UK in general, and only on a cursory level familiar with UK politics, probably a little bit more than most Americans, but that's not saying much. I mean, really honestly, but I mean, I've had to learn quite a bit in the last several years because of the Assange case as to who was who and where they came from and how far back their malevolence or servitude goes. And the way that I don't know, we kind of looked at Brexit here was one of the obviously, yes, I do think that the European Union is almost ran like a quasi mafia state. I think that anybody would be better off out of it. I think that it has been just a vehicle for exploitation over the last 40 or 50 years. But yeah, when somebody like Bojo gets involved, or really for that matter, when someone like Nigel Farage is the face of it, and the champion of it, it gives me pause. I think that, and as faulty as Corbyn was 5 years ago when he was supportive of Brexit, there were decent reasons that my friends who live in the Midlands we're talking about. This is why we wanted to get out of the EU.
Yeah. That, man, when you say 40, 50 years, well, it should be really considered exactly 50 years that there was a coup in Europe in general. There was something that was unwritten. It's not put down in history. But when Ted Heath got in over in Britain, the famous paedophile prime minister, as he's called, who was close friends with Jimmy Savile, and put Margaret Thatcher as head of education, and set up the social services, which is the main care body, official care body for the government in the early 70s. So that's 1971. At the same time as the World Economic Forums being set up across the way, at the same time, which was a lot of big businessmen from the very first meeting. The very first meeting they went off.
We dropped the gold standard the next year.
Yeah, all of that time there was a coup going on. Ted Heath, one of the most compromised politicians of all time, who he was rumored, and many different people have said this to police in police statements. He had a metal claw that he used to put in his hands so he could abuse the children because he didn't like touching them. and then he'd cry the whole time. He has got one of the most intriguing histories. He has got one of the most amazing histories. He was at the, I think it was the Nuremberg rallies just before the war, when Hitler was speaking up on stage in like 1938, going on 39. Hitler made this big speech, which was about how we're going to crush everybody, etc. And Ted Heath was actually, the future Prime Minister of Britain, was actually just sitting across probably about 30 meters away from Hitler watching on. They got stuck, him and a friend who people assume was his boyfriend in university, got stuck in Poland when the actual war started and when war was declared. And Ted Heath and his friend had to sneak across Europe by trains. But I don't think they did much sneaking. I think they just able to walk through because they were that type of people anyway. But Ted Heath would go on to really just let Europe in completely. He signed over Britain to Europe without us having a proper say over it. And then there was a later referendum with people being really angry, only in about, I think, in the mid-70s. But Ted Heath, his history, his cabinet, everything about him says he was compromised and Europe took over Britain at that point. And really Brexit was an expression of 40 years, 50 years of real pent-up anger towards that elite establishment class, the bankers, etc., who were the people who were behind Ted Heath and behind the movement at that time. At the same time, like I say, they were making the social care system in the UK, which would be, for the next 30 years, their pot for finding children to abuse. So this was where the politicians went to, and there's lots of care home scandals. I worked on some of them, like I've worked on researching some of them. There's so many you couldn't believe. They all come from the fact that Ted Heath set up all of these other people who were all basically either paedophile enablers or paedophiles to be in the heads of all the social services around the country, without them having any qualifications in social care or anything like that. One was Nicholas Stacey, who was a priest who I wrote a story about, and the story is titled a sentence that he said, a statement that he said, which was, men who are attracted to 13-year-old boys make the best teachers. And that was really his mindset. He was also taught by the same guy, who his deputy head was the one who Boris Johnson school, Ashdown House, where they said you can't molest the boys anymore. That was also his head as well. And it seems like if you go back in time far enough, if you go back into the 50s and 60s, all these people who would later abuse people in politics were all taught by the same group of teachers who were all friends of the creator of James Bond, Ian Fleming, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I always get mixed up with the guy who invented some sort of medicine. But all of those people ran together. They all brought up these kids, these abused, malevolent kids, to be the future politicians of our country. And they're all completely and utterly got behavioral issues galore, got hang-ups, and so they were easy to control and manipulate all through the 70s, all through the 80s, and basically through the 90s. And then I think probably it was early 90s, early noughties, late 90s, where things started to break apart for the whole gang, and the first people started to be brought down for crimes they had committed before. But the first people were the low-level people, the people who, well, I say low-level, but the people who organized bringing kids backwards and forwards, and they didn't really get punished that much, but they got the brunt of it. And then the rest of them, they waited for all of the establishment and political figures like Ted Heath to die, or waited for Jimmy Savile to die before, like, you know, they leaked the truth out slowly. But everybody knew. I mean, I was brought up with Jimmy Savile on the TV. Jimmy Savile was part of my childhood, and I tell you, we all wanted, every single kid in this country wanted to go on Jim Will Fix It. It was the most exciting show. It was like he took kids to have like these adventures, and you get to see all the adventures, and it just made you want to go. But I also knew he was a creep from a very young age. I mean, it was obvious. It was written all over his face. He's one of the
Yeah, I've
darkest
seen
guys.
video. I mean, the guy looks like, I don't know, dude. I mean, he looks like a caricature of what you would think a pedophile would look like
Yeah.
just extra cartooned out, extra flamboyant, extra
Hmm.
extravagant, and so like I guess it's supposed to make you think, oh, he's doing a bit
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's okay.
yeah. But no, Jimmy Savile was never okay. He was he had his is a strange story as well. He was like born on Halloween. He was the seventh son of a 13-child family or something along those lines. He used to wear robes that had symbols all over them, and suggested that he was into the Aleister Crowley school of magic.
I
The
was I was just
Yeah,
gonna ask if
do
it was
what thou
Crowley
wilt.
related.
The miners who used to work with him back in the mines, because originally before he was a DJ, he was a miner in the north in Leeds, and the people who worked with him said they thought he was a witch. He used to read. They said he used to read like witchy stuff all of the time, and he used to be casting
Well,
spells,
who
and no one
doesn't
wanted
bring
to
a
work with him.
Gregory to work?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
he
mean,
used to go dressed in a suit down the mines. That's what the rumors are. He used to go dressed in a suit down the mines. Yeah.
bro, can you imagine? Like, I mean, I've worked in some pretty fucking rough manual labor jobs before in my life. I've never been like down in a mine, but I've had some pretty fucking brutal jobs, right?
Yeah,
And I
man.
know the kind of dudes that that are staffed in those
Mm-hmm.
if you're coming down into the mine in a suit with the Necronomicon, I'm giving you a little bit of space too.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
That's the rumors. That's
like,
the rumors he got. He went on to be a manager in nightclubs, and he would basically. You can imagine all the stories. All the stories are the most horrible stuff. But there's a lot of. I think there was a lot of that around that time. There was a lot of worship of the Aleister Crowley way of thinking. I think it became like an early meme in the before our time. It becomes some sort of like, oh, you have to flick the Aleister Crowley, do the Aleister Crowley symbols. That's gone on now, of course, but you never know who's actually what and what they're actually
I
doing.
mean, Led Zeppelin basically made their career off of it.
Yeah, and it does, and then it makes you question. Well, even though I was brought up in a church school with like going to church and having like Sunday school and all of that, and eventually when I was 11, I said, fuck that, I'm not going to church anymore, to my parents, and then my whole family stopped going to church because they were all just faking it, man. They were just faking it. We were all faking it, like. But I'm not a religious person, but it can make you believe that there's something in it when you see how these evil people make so much money when they're flashing all of these signs around, and how they can make careers off it. It's like they make a career off an evil symbol. I believe in the universe having something mystical and wonderful about it, but like that sort of stuff, I can't believe it. I can't believe in it fully, but I see the results of it as well. So sometimes I think
Well,
maybe it's self-belief. People make it themselves believe that they're that powerful, and they act that out in
yeah.
life.
The way that I've always felt about it, especially where ritual magic is concerned, and I mean certainly some of the Crowley stuff, but in terms of like what we hear about just even on the periphery with spirit cooking and shit like that, what I've always felt about that is it doesn't matter if I believe in it. It matters if they believe in it.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
they believe, like all essentially all magic is, all prayer is, all any of that is a concentrated energy with focus and intent for a specific outcome. That's essentially what a prayer
Yeah.
is. That's essentially what a spell is. It's essentially what a ritual is.
And I think they have the same manifestations in the brain. If you actually look at brain scans, they say when someone's chanting or when someone's praying or when someone's doing something equivalent of each religion, and their prefrontal lobes are glowing, you know. And I think it just comes down to honing into your mind and doing some mindfulness, and then putting down the results to something spiritual, but in the same way. I've had so many experiences in my life that should make me spiritual and much more spiritual, but I think it's because of all the nasty people around, like, and all this shit. I'm like, well, I just can't. I can't get down with it.
I have a very, I don't know. I guess loosely constructed spirituality. I don't like. I don't know. I'm not a fan of organized religion at all. I have a couple people that I consider spiritual advisors, and one of them is a reverend, but she was also a Black Panther in the Razor Brigade when she was a kid, and was slicing up cops on the front lines of protests while they were bashing in her and her friends' heads, and like grew up with Malcolm X because her brother was Malcolm X's lieutenant. And like, so when she gives me advice of a spiritual nature, it comes from a place that isn't like mega churchy, you know?
Yeah. But it's all about,
and it's up to me to listen to it. I don't have to.
Individual intent, though. Individual intent. I mean, the intent of the person and what they want to make you what they want to make you feel from it, or what they want to make you do. If someone's trying to convince you to do something, if someone's just giving you the options to look at your life from another perspective, that's mostly what religious people should do. And if you look at what the wisdom that comes from many different religions, you look at every single religion, and there's one thing that keeps coming up over and over again: is don't worry, everything's fine. It all just passes, and it all goes on, and everything's beautiful. And that's basically the principle I like to take from everything. It's like it's all so glorious, man. We're in it's like apparently we're in this massive universe, and apparently we're like specks of dust, and that's pretty cool because we've got like opportunity to experience consciousness and etc. And then we'll go to being nothingness again, have a long sleep. That sounds pretty cool, man. That sounds. I know why people want to extend it, but sometimes I have to stop myself from being frustrated at religious people, because really I do think that religion is being involved with it is basically helping destroy communication in the world, because we can't communicate as a species, we can't communicate as two humans if we have a different outlook on things. Yet it would be wrong to make everybody think the one way, and that would just be a religion then. So it's all catch-22. I love listening to the stories, though, man. I'm well into like hearing religious stories and listening to like, especially like a really passionate Muslim person speak about stuff. It's like, whoa, it's a trip to see someone who's really into it, like really into it. And when I was young,
really
I used to pop around. Yeah, I used to go to like charismatic churches and evangelical churches when I was young, mainly because it was free food. But also because I had a friend who was an extremely like he was a Christian who liked to argue. He wasn't really a Christian. He didn't really believe in God. He just liked to argue with people, and the best place to argue was church. I mean, you always find an argument there, and it was free food.
I liked to get laid, and from around 8th grade to about my like just before my junior year of high school, just before I was like 16 and a half, like that 3.5 4 year period. Youth group was very, very good to me.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very good to me.
Oh, good.
I grew up in a town that, like, to this day has a week-long sort of like tent revival camp meeting thing where,
Oh man.
the borderline Pentecostals from all over the world come to my hometown, and like my church puts it on, and it's like I don't know, dude, Christian Woodstock kind of shit, man. It's ridiculous. And
I would love a bit of that when I was young, but instead, like some of the people who went to my like Sunday schools and stuff were funky, man, funky looking. Every single one of them, probably even me, to be perfectly honest. We were all a bit funky looking. There was one guy who used to shave off his spots. You know how you always know one of those guys who gets to about 14 and thinks the best choice of this is just shave them all off. And yeah, I couldn't. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that for me. My religion, it was like a very small place with some really bent up people who were frustrated and like. It's where I used to sell chocolate. Really, that was what my thing was.
okay.
I used to steal chocolate from the cupboard at home, and take it to church and sell it to the other kids. And
Okay. We sold like dime bags of weed and
yeah, yeah, I would
I remember. Okay, so I went to church camp. This is had to have been my freshman year of high school. I was 14 years old, something like that. And my buddy who now has a PhD in theology. He's a doctor of divinity. He got his doctorate of divinity at Princeton University. This dude, I'm not going to say his name. I can't now that I've already set it up. But this dude helped me and a couple other people sneak like about a half pound of decent weed to church camp, and we got I mean, dude, we probably got a dozen people just, oh god, higher than giraffe pussy, bro. We were lit,
Oh.
right? And we're walking down the path towards the dining hall, and this guy looks at me and he goes, "Hey, do you think if you stop thinking about your dick, it could go away? Like you could just go somewhere else? Like if you don't check, like do you think like because I feel like I should check." And at the time there was a song out and it was called Detachable Penis, and fucking it is fucking trippy. So like go eat acid and listen to Detachable Penis. It's fucking hilarious, dude. Absolutely hilarious. But he has this whole spiel about what happens to your dick when you don't think about it. And and I'm realizing, cause high, like, all right, I'm at church camp. I am higher than a Christmas moon right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a conversation about missing dicks with one of the dudes who's here at church camp with me, knowing full well that we're going to go have a snack and then go fucking like roll in the hay.
He wanted you to touch his little acorn bit. That's what he wanted you to do. He wanted you to tingle his acorn bit, man. He did. He did. I mean, if I had said that to you, I would have wanted that. That's what I would have wanted. If I had said that to you, I would be
hoping I'd check for man.
Yeah,
I should call that guy and apologize to him for not just like cupping his junk that day. Bro, I didn't know.
Cupping junk changes people. It changes human beings. If you go, I learned. I'm not joking about this. If I learned that if you go up to people at the beginning of like any party or any session and say, like to a man and say, only to men, you can't do it to women, and say, I am going to cup your balls by the end of the night. I'm going to lift your balls up by my hands and carry your weight. The ones you'll soon discover who's homophobic, who's shit scared of their own sexuality, who's you don't have to do it, you just have to tell them, and by the end of it they will come to you and they will ask you to cup them. They will, because they can't handle, like the certain ones can't handle the fear of knowing that they're going to have their balls cupped at some time during the night.
Oh, so it's like just get it over with.
Yeah. Loads of people have come up to me and said, "Just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. Would you just do it?" And so, it's a hard life in Britain, though.
That is a phenomenal power to have.
Yeah. Well, you find you can say to people, and you discover who is attuned with their own sexuality. I mean, yeah, as soon as you meet someone and you say I'm going to cut your balls, and they're homophobe, you see it straight away. They start sweating, they get angry, they get violent, and then you know who to wind up all night. You know who to just keep going on and just keep, because eventually it breaks as well. People got to think of their own sexuality often by thinking of other people's sexuality, methinks.
My God, when you're done hanging out in Chile, you should come up here. I'm gonna take you to like every party I can find.
I'd love to, but my cupping days are behind me. I decided to leave them behind because there was too many guys who would say this, and this is another way you find horrible people. There's too many guys who say, "Yes, but what if I did it to a woman?" And instantly, all right, okay, I'm encouraging people to just find an excuse to do, like, encouraging the bad people as well. So, I mean, sometimes a cup is for a time, it's for a period, and then the period goes. So my cupping days are over. I've stopped it now. They were good days, heady.
I feel like there may be some impressionable people who are watching the show right now, and to them, I would like to say, carry on that tradition.
Do
go forth and cup some balls.
Also,
just shits and giggles.
Invent some moves. We had like certain moves. So if someone was talking to somebody else, and the other person, of course, a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, cut my balls," and as soon as they say "cut your balls," you can do it again. So we had things like when they were talking to someone, we do the Euro tunnel, which is you go through someone else's legs to get to their balls, or you do the monster, you run up to them and you go "Rah!" and they put their hands up to protect themselves, and then you go down and you cut their balls, things like that. It was.
You've put a ridiculous amount of thought into this, haven't you, my friend?
Yes.
That is fucking phenomenal.
Yes. That's weed. That's definitely weed.
Yeah. This is if nothing else, at least when I moved to this particular spot, it was pretty rednecky, but also California. So you would have the dope growing hippies, but they would also have dirt bikes and be armed. But it amazed me how many people would drink themselves gay just anytime there was a gathering. Anytime 4 or more people were in a same spot together, like at least one person would just drink themselves right out of the closet. And it was hilarious, dude, because these are like pretty yoked out, fairly scruffy, usually grew up working for a logging company or a tree service outfit or something like that. And
I truly understand those people, because I come from South Wales, which is like it was all valleys and all coal. It was like one of the main areas of coal, so everybody was a miner in Wales, like in South Wales, and rugged people. And up in the valleys, no one talked about being gay for until probably about late 90s, and then suddenly everybody was gay. The whole place was just gay. And even the most heterosexual men up there are really gay now. They're really tall and big, and they walk around in their designer clothes, and they walk like supermodels and stuff because they think they're the bee's knees. So even the heterosexual guys have turned gay up there. I'm all for it, man. If they want to enjoy themselves, they enjoy themselves. That's what the valleys is for.
I mean, live and let live. It's not my job to tell you how to dress or who to love or whose balls to cup. You should probably get consent if you're going to continue ball coverage. But
Consent between two humans, two adult humans, may I say, is a beautiful thing, because that's when they build relationships. They start to communicate on different levels that are not necessarily just small talk and just talking about the things that you like in life. If you actually pass boundaries, you start to have other conversations, and you start to. I'm not saying everybody should go and have sex in the valleys, but I mean, obviously, they're pretty sexy up there.
God, I would almost take the copyright strike now to play the song, but I think it was on Mad TV back in the 90s. There was a band called Corky and the Juice Pigs, and they
Oh my
had a
God.
song called I'm the Only Gay Eskimo, and it was fucking hysterical.
It sounds like a song I'd
Absolutely
make.
hysterical.
It sounds like a song I'd make. I love making songs that are literally about things like that, like that. Like
I
that being the only gay
will
Eskimo
find it
person.
and I will send it to you. You will be like, oh my God, dude,
It
that's
will be on
great.
my playlist forever. It will be. I'm someone who like. I like two things. I like the best of every genre. Yeah, especially when it comes down to music, like in arts and movies and stuff. I love the best of every genre, but I also love the worst, the real bad worst, or the stuff that's askew all of the time. And I've always had like independent love of music has been strong. As soon as I hear something that's overproduced, I kind of turn off and switch off quite quickly, and I look for something that's like Paul Super Apple or something.
I get it. I do. So my boss at work is a just turned 63. The only reason he's still working is because you have to work until you die in California, unless you inherited generational wealth. And he's from the Pennsylvania Hill Country, which is coal country in and of itself as well. Like basically, like Buffalo, New York was the closest big city to this dude when he grew up. So he grew up like cold and mean, and now he's like warmer and incredibly salty.
I know many warm, salty people. If that is a description of people's characters that I can use, are you sure you don't get a copyright strike for something like that? Oh, such a warm, salty person he was. Oh.
I mean, who knows what YouTube's gonna do to us anyway? But I really am. I'm amazed every day that I have a YouTube channel. I'm not even sure why I started telling a story about my boss. It'll come back to me. It's been a really it's been a fucking my God, dude. We are 21 days, 3 weeks into 2021, and like the whole fucking world is just upside down and it absolutely insane, and it like the progressive left in America is cheerleading censorship, and their content creators running around screaming their heads off for like their peers to get deplatformed, like it couldn't happen to them at any moment.
This moment feels like everybody is bracing for impact. Like they're all bracing for impact. They all know that at some point the really big laws are going to come in. There's going to be a load of companies that get taken out by it, and probably most of them will deserve it, because most of them will have acquiesced enough that eventually they get taken down because they've done that, and a load of more will become relics of the past because they'll just be too complicated to run. I mean, most of them are just full of. You look at YouTube, as soon as the people start buying and invest, it gets filled up with intelligence agents, people manipulating things, and you can't win with them. They're going to ruin whatever you do. They are very good at that. That's what intelligence agents do. They do things very badly, is basically their thing.
Hey, we have got at least, I don't know, in the American independent media landscape, it seems like we've got more, I don't know, disingenuous grifters who merrily spew CIA talking points than we do actual fucking truth-telling content creators. And I don't know how to unfuck that. I really don't.
Well, I think part of it comes down to people who don't have so much of a platform to lose, because this is a problem with anything. You pick a fight with somebody, you're going to have a battle with somebody. You're going to have a battle. The only way to win that battle is if you've got the right kind of like level, because otherwise they can crush you. If you're big enough now, they can get you censored, or they can get you pulled down, or they can make all of their fans dogpile on you, and then before you know it, it's too hard to move for shit being spoken all of the time, and yeah, you're catching up on your reputation. But there's certain independent media stations that have been working for the other side for a long time, and I suppose it's possibly easier to see some that are well-meaning, like for instance, I think Jimmy Dore's well-meaning. I think that he gets used by some of the people who they look shiny, they look clean, they look nice, like nice individuals. They say the things you want them to say, but in the background they're also manufacturing how things are going to be looked at for other people, and for like I don't know if you saw, you remember when last year when those Marines got caught doing that stupid coup in Venezuela.
Yeah, I do. I reported on that.
Yeah. I mean, it was a nuts old affair. But the couple of days later, the Grey Zone put out this video, and it was a woman from the Grey Zone, and she said, I got the number for the person who did the operation, who led the operation, who was back in America, or who hired the people. She said, I called him, and the phone call went along these lines. It went, hello, I'm a reporter from Washington, and I'd like to talk to you about the event that happened. Okay, I'll talk about the event that happened, and then spews up all his guts. He doesn't find out where she works for. He doesn't find out what her name is. He doesn't ask any other questions because it's all pre-prepared. It's all just more stage show. So what those guys do, for instance, is they'll move on to the side and they'll say, look at all of these bad things they're doing to all of these different places. Look at all of these bad things they're doing to freedom of speech. But when you want to talk about something that's really not allowed to be talked about, they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones who close the gate, and they're the ones who are so easily able to get into play people like Jimmy Dore, who have a soft heart and able to manipulate them and look like the real deal. I mean, Aaron Maté, the award-winning, amazing journalist who's fantastic, but won't talk about 9/11 stuff with someone who knows about 9/11. So all of these people, when I see them at first, they look too shiny to be true. When I listen to their words, it's all too good to be true. And then when you really listen hard, you see that they're a bunch of grifters who are working for some really shady characters who are all out to disinform. I mean, a lot of the top echelons of independent media is as corrupt as the mainstream media. It was compromised years and years ago.
What cracks me up about that is when you see the public downfall years later of an outlet like The Intercept, like what's happening to them right now. Now there have been a handful of people that have dared to criticize The Intercept over the last several years of its existence. Me being one of them, the person's house that you're in right now being one of them. Boy, did we get shit for that. And yet, like right now, right, just in the last few months, like Greenwald walks away years too late, in my opinion, but walks away publicly. And then we find out just a week or so ago that Laura Poitras quit a month later. Glenn left at the beginning of November. She left at the end of it or something like that. It just became public though. But the reasons that they left were all of the public criticisms that a handful of us voiced in real time, and drew connections like, why is an outlet that's heavily funded by somebody who heavily funds color revolutions, allowed to sort of talk about this, but then look at all the whistleblowers that get burned.
And you think a lot of people, I mean, he's one who's Noam Chomsky, who I know lots of people respect Noam Chomsky, but I think he does the same thing. He keeps this mediocre line running that is acceptable to the establishment, the acceptable arguments to argue against the establishment that have been fought out, planned out, that they know how to defeat with in other ways, maybe by calling you names like derogatory terms like conspiracy theorist or whatever. You know, there's loads of these things that these people, they stick to this area, but it's a bit wider than the mainstream area. So we notice it and we say, oh, look at those people doing those details. They're really, really noticeable at this time where mainstream media is so low, down and dirty. So we use that comparison to judge those people by, but often, you know, they're also part of the bad bunch. They're also part of the same people. They're also funded by the same people, and they also get told you're not allowed to talk about this or you're not allowed to talk about that, which is really fundamentally the problem with our societies in general, across all society, is people put in rules that say humans can't communicate with each other. So standard operating procedures in most businesses is that you have to communicate with customers in a certain way, and you shouldn't tell them this and you shouldn't tell them that, and you should do things like this and should do things like that. But when you actually put that into action within a company or a business, what you find is that the people get frustrated and angry because they know you're not telling them the truth. They know you're patronizing them. They know you're lying to them. They know that what the real reason is, and it's now a state of hyper-normalization that they find themselves in. Lots of people are lost in this world, though. I mean, I lost my train of thought for a second, but I mean, lots of people are just in a place where it's really hard for them to figure out what's going on, who to trust, which media outlet is actually going to be the ones who have integrity, because nearly every single one of them seem to lose their integrity over time, due usually to funding and money. So the only way to be out of that is to not take big money. That can be the only way, is not take big money.
I agree 100% with that. I mean, I'm just now to the point to where I'm starting to consider at least doing this full time until it becomes obvious that, you know, it's no longer going to be viable. Again, because I've done that before, through journalism, not through fucking saying, you know, random shit and having honestly the best interviews on YouTube. But my God, I really do have like the best fucking. It's fucking weird, man. It's weird.
When you talk honestly, open, when you've got compassion for other people, when you allow other people to have a say, when you communicate with people, and this is a point I'm really, I can't help but to make over and over again. What you get is good conversations. You get to know someone. You get to see inside someone. When someone puts a structure and a pattern, like a way around all of that, and then suddenly you're not allowed to talk about certain things, everybody suffers. The whole conversation suffers. Everybody watching suffers. You know, it's what you do is allow people to speak. And that's really important.
And something that we've always stressed on the show here, in terms of like how to determine whether or not a narrative is being managed and where the management is coming from, is by looking at what the allowable parameters for conversation are, you know, and if there's just a giant forest of red flags that get raised in your mind and every single one of them fall outside of those allowable parameters, then maybe it's time to start fucking looking into that. And maybe I couldn't agree with you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe it's time to start talking about the things you're not allowed to talk about. And I'm not talking about it from like eugenicists talking about, well, no, I am. I'm talking about if we have a conversation with a eugenicist, then let's have a conversation with a eugenicist, not have a conversation where we say our part and we don't listen to them in return. That is a perfect example because I don't agree with them and I feel really angry towards them. And that's how I feel most of the time when I'm dealing with people like that. I don't understand why they can't have, and a lot of the time, at the beginning of last year, I went into a thing called I did a data dive in pieces, which is I found a way to get onto peer-to-peer networks and search some people's hard drives that they've shared legally. So they said, share my hard drive, but they accidentally haven't unticked the downloads folder. So I get to see and share, receive anything that's in their download folder. So this was a way I was trying to hunt pedophiles. It was basically going, finding people who got really bad stuff in their files, taking screenshots of it, taking all of the information, like for instance bills or things, that the documents, not any of the other stuff, but all of the documents and things, finding out that person's information and then reporting them over to the police. But I also found some other things. But may I say, the police don't do anything at all, ever. They always let it go. I still receive, like one case that I was dealing with last January, I'm still receiving emails to this very day, literally yesterday one, telling me that he's still offending. And however much I try and stop, I had him removed from a school. Well, what the story I wrote had him removed from a school, but they didn't do anything about him. He was allowed to work in the school, even though he was on an FBI watch list for downloading this sort of stuff. So there's loads of dark, dirty people, but also there's loads of businesses and stuff. So I was going into I was finding people who worked for big businesses and who were leaking their own employees' data online. And I was downloading all of that information and then going to them and going, ha ha ha, now I'm going to write a story about you, you bastards, and see how they're not exactly like that, but you know, a little bit polite. But this is I had to communicate. I had to communicate with people who I didn't like at all, and I had to use terms that weren't like that. I had to use their terms and lead them into a false sense of security as well, because often they don't realize, you know, when you're saying to approaching a company, like I approached a company called Law 360, who are one of the biggest publishers of law news in the whole of the Western world. They also allow for databases to be shared. They've got access to state court databases in America and other places that have loads of information on it and are really useful for loads of data sets. And you hire a subscription with Law 360 and you get access to these databases. And so I found this woman who was an accountant for them, who was sharing, like, I don't know, music or whatever online, but she was also sharing all of the contracts from Law 360. These people paying £16,000 to £30,000 to have access to all the legal databases, including Black Cube, the Israeli intelligence agency, who had a contract with them. So I was able to go to these guys and say, "Oh, you've been leaking data. I've got evidence. What are you going to do about it?" And let them come back. Rah, 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 and then prove it to them, show them everything, and suddenly you've got them in a situation where they know they have to have a conversation with you. And I know that they can't do anything because this has been shared legally online. There is like, this is like a loophole, a way that is so hard for them to respond to by saying, "Oh, it's criminal," because it's been publicly shared online, and I am warning them that it is being shared so they can stop that sharing happen. And then I see how their reaction is. So I get to know that I'm doing the right thing. I want them to say to me, "Oh, we want our data back. We're going to tell all of our employees that their data's been leaked. And we're going to put out an apology to them," or whatever. You know, I want that to happen. That should be what happens in this situation. These big companies never do that. They never inform their customers. They never inform their staff. They shit themselves and try and threaten you with all sorts of legal action. So I had like months at the beginning of last year where I was just backwards and forwards with lawyers and solicitors, people who I would never deal with normally, who who all knew that it was a public interest, like these were public interest stories, that I had a right to publish the stories, that I wasn't trying to blackmail them, ask anything from them, because I caught them out whenever they went the wrong way. I'd say, all right, this is what you should have done. Why haven't you done this yet? You should have asked me for a secure, me to send this back securely. You should have asked me to do all of these different things. Why haven't you done that? And to see them then they go on the attack, but they've got nothing to attack with because what they've done is wrong. So you learn how to communicate with these people, but you've got the upper hand. So it's kind of like training. It was very good training for me to deal with these elitist, snobby, earning like 120, 200,000 K a year or whatever, head up their own ass people, and have them at the start, win the battle before I go on the battlefield, and then see what they do, and then write the story not about the subject but about what they do. And so I did that a bit at the beginning, and a lot of that was about learning how to for me to learn how to communicate with people who would seem scary in any other situation, people who I wouldn't dare take on. If I had done something where it was wrong, I wouldn't dare try and take on a company that has got some of the best attorneys in the country giving advice to attorneys. So these guys are the top. They had offices full of them, and I could go in there, already won, beat them, and revel in it to them, but by saying you have to follow these rules. Why aren't you following the rules over and over again until eventually they follow the rules? So like learning how to communicate with people, learning how to talk with people you don't like, and come out of it with something good at the end. Because I could have just been like, Mr. Gloaty Gloat, you leaking Black Cube's intelligence. It's hilarious. I did do a bit of that gloating, but that could have been the main reason I do it. But the main reason I've done it is to see what they do after. I want to see their reaction. I want to put these people in the hot seat, because these people are people in the hot seat all of the time, daily. All of their employees, all of the people they rip off every day, and all of the data that they're selling, because those people are selling the data that should be kept within like federal systems, etc., to a private Israeli intelligence firm. I mean, that's you're arguing about the one bit with them, but all of the time is like that question comes down to, why are you selling other people's data to a private Israeli intelligence firm? So you beat them on many levels, but you communicate with these people. You show them that they're fallible. You show them that they've got weakness, and you fight against them, because that's the only thing we can do. And they're going to shut us down. I don't mention her name, because if I mention her name, then all videos go down. I've never been able to say this woman's name without a video being taken down, apart from one, because it was based around Wexner. But a lady called MJ, who I wrote a story about, who was basically the Epstein associate that nobody was talking about, had big ties to Mossad, Unit 8200 company car by 9/11 that Whitney's talked about on a fair few occasions. They were just starting out, and I found them very early, like about 4 years ago. I've forgotten my train of thought again, but basically, like there's certain people who, if I mention, they'll get taken off, so I can't talk about them exactly. If you want to keep your channel going up high and nice and fine, because it gets there's some people who will take you down. You've got to know the battles you need to fight, and eventually we all need to be on platforms where we can fight them without them being able to return fire. And that's one of the reasons why I came over to Unlimited Hangout, because Unlimited Hangout is like one of the only places I found where I'm going to read the article I'm talking about. The first of a trilogy of articles I'm talking about has been recently taken down by Vocal Media, who I was doing work for before, because this woman has gone to like 5 different countries, courts in 5 different countries to to have it taken down, and failed nearly every time. But then eventually, now with the way it is, they bowed to the pressure and they took it down. So that I'm going to republish that series on Unlimited Hangout, and it's places like that where we've got to build up communities of truth tellers.
So my chat knows who you're talking about because Whitney popped into the chat to drop the name.
Yeah.
Hi, Whitney.
Hey there.
I think so. I think I'm here. But yeah. That's fucking that's hectic. I'm looking forward to that article, by the way, or that series. And you're welcome back to, you know, do a little bit more like deep dive on that as it's coming out or when it comes out, and
I'd love to,
things
buddy.
like that.
There's a fair few articles coming up. There's one working on at the moment, which is I mean, we're looking at the World Economic Forum at the moment. We're focusing on them, and the one that's coming up that I'll be releasing in the next few days is about an event called Cyber Polygon, which happened in 2020. Very similar to Event 201 in the way that it prophesizes the coming cyber pandemic that's going to happen around the world. And of course, it's Klaus Schwab on top with his mate Tony Blair, and all of the usual cronies that hang around, all banksters, all people who have like well, it's nearly all banksters, nearly all of these guys who are ruling things. They're all ex Goldman Sachs, ex Price Waterhouse Cooper. They've all got the money, and now this year they're going to try and take control. They're moving openly. This is the first time that I've really seen them be so overt with their Great Reset and all of the other things. They're talking about it openly, so we should be worried, because you see the appointments that are going in Biden as well, and there's a lot of people who seem to be sneaking in under the radar and have other agendas already, and are well-known agendas.
I mean,
that are going to shake things.
From 2019 and 2020, we saw like half of the West's world leaders use Build Back Better as part of their official campaign sloganeering.
Yeah, building up for the back better, building up for the Great Reset, building up for Klaus Schwab,
and now,
and his unlimited power.
Now, a sitting American president, whether or not it doesn't even matter that he's not there legitimately, he's there. You know, like there's not going to be any magic moment where people rise up to delegitimize, you know, in public the U.S. election system. That's just not going to happen.
God, I always hope so, though. Can I just dream a little bit? Can I just? Do you have to spoil all my dreams?
It would be so easy. It would, Johnny. We have privately owned elections. You know, I mean, you have voting machines that you can't audit. You like that on its face delegitimizes every election 100%.
The same over in Britain. You have a system where it means that as soon as there's voting irregularities, there's a body, independent body that's attached to government that turns around and says, okay, we'll investigate it. Okay, we found some irregularities. You did cheat. We're going to give you a £50,000 fine. And that's what they do. So no one gets brought down, nothing like that. They get a small fine from the voting ombudsman, whoever they're called, and they're allowed to continue ruling with proper consent, because we all know it's a sham. We all know. I mean, hypernormalization is crazy now because we all know the word for it as well. We all know that we're watching a show. They know that it's a show. They know what they're telling us is wrong. They know we know that it's wrong. You know, this is seriously people clapping and to their dear leaders nearly all of the time, and they're choosing to. They're not even being forced to. A lot of people, they're just so happy to get down with this system, and I really do hope that something would change, but there's only one way that things end, and it's badly. That's all I can say about it. There's only one way things like this have always ended in history, is badly.
I got a couple of things I want to throw at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much time you have. We've been going about an hour. I can probably go for like another 20 minutes. Oh shit. So okay, I got with this the inauguration happened yesterday, Tuesday, something like that. I can't fucking bullshit. But can you imagine how Western media would report it if Iran or Russia or China had a publicly heavily contested election? Like the legitimacy of it was questioned. There were a bunch of lawsuits. They didn't pan out, but the lawsuits themselves were more or less, but without merit and grounds intentionally. But 75% of the country, 70% of the country, like officially, the half that doesn't vote, the half the half of the other half that voted for Trump know that we did not have a legitimate election.
Yep.
A lot of the people that ended up voting for Joe Biden know that Joe Biden got there fraudulently because the primary was rigged. Like the majority of the people involved know that it was a sham, right? So, and have said so out loud. So imagine how the West would report it if that election took place in China or in Russia or in Iran, and the new authority on the day that he was being sworn in had cleared the streets for a mile and a half around the presidential residence, put up fence and staffed 25,000 members of his security forces, 12 of whom were removed because they had expressed disloyal sentiments on social media. How would we cover it?
Can you think of any time in history before where there's been this dystopian, no one celebrating, no crowds, they're all standing there quietly in masks. They could be just, I mean, we don't even know if it's them. They're
like monochrome and shit.
It's crazy, and where they're at now is just, I mean, oh god, have you heard about that Israeli product where it's a speaker but they beam the sound straight into your brain? And that's I know, but yeah, that's what it's going to be. You're going to be walking past someone's house and they're going to be like, or you're going to be walking in your house and you're going to get a beam come through the window that tells you want to buy bread or something eventually, This is the wrong type of bread you're eating here. People saying,
this is the other thing I wanted to throw at you. If you read UN Agenda 2030, and it looks like a significant portion of the West is 100% behind that, to the point to where like Justin Trudeau sitting at his desk talking about it, just fucking, casually. If you read it, it says that basically civilization is going to continue in major metropolitan areas, and rural areas are going to be abandoned by the civilized. So to me, that says I can go build a house in the middle of nowhere and fish off of my deck, but I don't know how long that, like, it's in me to fight this with whatever I can, however I can. But I would like to be able to do that outside of the system.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's going to come down to some form of future direct action that we can't even imagine yet. We can't even understand, because quite simply we're entering into a new realm where they're setting themselves up for a big fall. They're setting themselves up for a really big fall. They think they're being really clever. They think AI is a really good idea. But what AI, can you imagine if they make something that's really, really intelligent and more intelligent than the human, and you program it with all the laws? The first thing it's going to do is go, that person who just programmed me with all the laws is guilty of breaking crimes, or alternatively, you get to an AI overlord state, and they're just going to say, why are we hanging around on Earth? Let's bugger off somewhere else. All of this stuff we're actually doing to ourselves. All this idea of taking people and sticking them in the city and crushing them in and making them, those domed sort of futuristic cities, are always for the rich man to have loads of land in the country and not be bothered by the serfs at all. And that's what we are. We're slaves to the order. They're no longer playing the same game they were before when we had rights. They're no longer playing those games. If they want to take the rights away, they're going to take them away, and they're going to take them away hard. The thing is when you say, what would we say if China or Russia had done that? We've become China or Russia. The cyber polygon thing I'm studying right now, I'm looking into it right now. It was set up by Russia. It's presented by Mikhail Mishustin, who's the prime minister of Russia, who was given the position, of course, by presidential decree from Putin, who just said, you're now the prime minister, no votes or anything in. They're not pretending anymore, and they're on the same side as the World Economic Forum and Tony Blair and all the rest. They're saying, oh, we're going to have a cyber pandemic that's going to be the worst cyber pandemic in the world. The Russians are on board. The Chinese are on board. The West are on board. This is authority. This is the time now. The battle is kind of. There is no way to see it as anything but a globalist authoritarian tech takeover that's going on in this entire world. And so the reason why people aren't able to focus in, I think people are so lost from reality now. A lot of people don't want to. I know a really nice woman who's really got a kind heart, and she voted for Biden and had this sentence which was like, I'm voting for hope still. And it's like, you're voting for someone whose son molests his niece,
grandniece,
underage,
yeah.
You're talking about people who do some of the worst things, and that's not hope. But we don't know what hope is. It's been deformed. Hope has been deformed with lots of people just don't know what a happy life would look like anymore. They're too busy arguing over the scraps of what the elites are willing to hand down. But you listen to what their real sentences. You listen to what they're really after. You listen to Yuval Noah Harari speaking to the World Economic Forum, and you listen to him say that in 100 to 200 years, probably 100, humans won't exist anymore. They plan on making humans extinct through transhumanism. They plan on not preserving humankind in any way, shape, or form. They plan and openly say that they're going to make us extinct. And then if we say the same thing, we're conspiracy theorists. So they already have their plan. Their plan is to destroy humanity within 100 years. They're enacting their plan right now to make some form of unknown transhumanist, something that could be taken out probably by an EMP, and the whole of civilization is dead. They want to put their all their eggs in one very unprepared basket. Listen to what they really say. What they really say is they want to kill you. That's what they really want to do. They want to end humanity. And we're now at a point where they're saying it openly to us. The same people who are saying, we need a great reset of all of humanity, are the same people who are hosting the guys who are saying, we're going to kill humanity in 100 years. And we're going to completely destroy them.
Fantastic and horrifying Klaus Schwab impression.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. I've been looking at him a lot recently.
That's shit. I agree. It makes me want to simultaneously fight that with every fiber of my being, and yet also it makes me want to build a blanket fort and fuck in it. Like,
I
until
know.
there's
It's.
like no world anymore.
I think you've got to do a little bit of column A and a little bit of column
I'm,
B. To
I'm,
be honest,
I'm
you got to
hoping
fight the
for a
world
healthy balance of both.
in a
Yeah.
blanket fort.
Yeah. I feel like saving the world could be plotted from inside a blanket fort while naked. I feel like it could be.
Maybe that's what
And
John
that,
Lennon was alluding to. Maybe that's what John Lennon and Yoko Ono were planning, really. They were planning a war. And it's just peace. They were doing the politicians. It's just peace. We're in bed. It's peaceful. Look, it's all peaceful. And really, they were planning a nuclear war, take out humanity. That must be why Mark
right?
Chapman took it down. I went to the Hilton in Amsterdam where they did that sit-in. I went to stay there one time because I worked for the Hilton back when I was a kid, and they said they wouldn't let me in. They said even though I had the bookings made, I was staff and all of that, they took one look at us and was like, "You are not staying here where there's yachts and there's big marble pillars. No, get out." And so we were checked out on the street in the same place. They didn't let us have any peace in bed. No.
Aw.
I'm still disgruntled.
Can you for the people watching, can you explain what you mean by cyber pandemic?
Well, this is a new term that they're using now, and you're going to hear a lot used a lot. So in 2019, they talked about the risks of a pandemic in these things like Event 201. In 2020, they talked about next year being a cyber pandemic, which is going to be basically. And this is what I was saying about the Russians being involved with the World Economic Forum over this. They're kind of like bringing them in from the cold and saying, "Oh, look, you're on our side now. You're fighting against these cyber terrorists who are also in your country and in our country because they want to turn cyber terrorism to being domestic terror as well. Every country is going to be looking inside their own country for their problems. So now Russia's like, oh, we also have cyber terrorists and we have to take down these cyber terrorists, and the British are like, yeah, you do have cyber terrorists, and before you had done things, but now you're good and you're not going to do things so much anymore." So they're saying that there's going to be a cyber pandemic, which is basically when they turn on all of these different things, when you have connectivity within the home, the Internet of Things, once the 5G's up and running and everything's working at high speed, then they're talking about how there's going to be cyber attacks all over the place because, of course, more tech means more ability to intrude into that tech. So they say, but at the same time, they have loads of the Israeli unit 8,200 linked companies who are all startups, who are all on the other side, and they're saying, "Oh yes, we're running these simulations against these same cyber attacks that are going to be all over the place." But they all come from the same people, and they roughly look like the same, and they're in the same companies, and really what they're doing is it seems to be creating a cyber panic, so that they can start taking down things like they can start teaching people lessons, teaching us serfs why we need them, why we need them really badly. So they'll take out things like power for long periods. They'll hack loads of bank accounts and make the financial system drop a bit. The current melt up that's happening, because at the moment they've been, for the past year and a half, 2 years, they've been pumping money into the stock market when the stock market's actually been going down the entire time because of the money they're pumping in, and that's called a melt up. So it's like melting up at the moment. At some point this year, they're going to have to let that tumble so they can start to bring in the Great Reset financial and economic side, and for that they're going to need a cyber pandemic, because they're going to have to be unaccountable. They can't take account for the fact they're going to destroy the financial system, because if they take account for it, they have to take account for all the people they're going to kill, because that will kill more people than coronavirus could ever kill. That's going to be people who are already down there on what we call in Britain the breadline, in poverty, abject poverty, and they're going to have everything taken away from them. This is going to mean death for lots of people, and so they can't take the responsibility and the ownership for that, of course, because they're the elites. So they need to have a system that will take down the financial system in some way, in a technological mass attack from loads of different sources all over the place, who kind of all work together and all work for these nefarious parties like Iran and the cyber terrorists. All of the things, that the rhetoric we've heard in the past is going to be repeated again, and it's mainly being repeated for the younger generation, I think, who still hold a little belief that the systems could be really true, and have been brainwashed to believe that conspiracy theories are never real, even though every single crime that's ever broken is conspiracy to commit something, conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracies all over the place. But people like to think it's a coincidence. They want to remain in their bubble. They need that ability to form an attack that doesn't look like them. And really, it's just like, it's a way to do what they want without having any accountability or culpability for their actions, which is what the elites are all about, especially when changing society and taking away money from poor people, which is something they really like. It also suits many of their other agendas that we've known for years and years. They don't like certain genes. They don't like certain people. They don't like muck. They prefer their high society. And I deal with a lot of these people who I can tell they're from researching them, that they're completely and utterly, they're in a different world. They don't see us as humans. They've even started in some respects categorizing us as animals or alongside animals within medical jargon. That we're seeing a lot more of that, and I think it's coming down to, and really within the mass vaccination, the like study, the enormous study that's going on at the moment. Well, that's the same sort of thing. That's them trying it out on the rest of the people who they don't see as people, so that they can try it out later. Remember, they want to build all of these amazing cyborg tech things where they become like part robots, but they don't want the first edition of that. They want like the 7th generation editions of that.
Right.
So Muggins over here has to be the ones who answer the brain chip first. That's the way they do it.
Yeah, no. I don't fucking I don't I look, the vaccine is not going the way that they wanted it to. It really isn't. The California Surgeon General had to put a pause on the Moderna vaccine.
Yeah.
Like, and that's California, like, where fucking people were. I can't tell you how brainwashed, even here in like fairly, at least originally down to earth Santa Cruz County. Santa Cruz proper is gone. That got invaded by NPR liberals decades ago. But the mountains up here at least used to, they were too rugged for people to really hang out. We got invaded by Silicon Valley bastards about a decade ago, and it's gone downhill since. But like, I can't tell you how many people I would just randomly hear being like, "Oh, I can't wait for this vaccine so we can get back to normal." And I would tell them, like, the people who make the vaccine tell you you're still going to have to wear a mask. You're still going to have to social distance. The vaccine doesn't actually cure anything.
Yeah, you're still going to have to take a vaccine.
Yeah, like, what normal do you think we're getting back to? And suddenly they're like, "Oh, you're a Trump supporting QAnon conspiracy theorist." No, I'm telling you what the people who made the vaccine said.
Yeah, it's so well. Well, I mean, that's what I did on the last article I wrote about the Pfizer, the British guidance for Pfizer vaccine for the medical healthcare professionals who are giving it out, and how they should do and what they should know about it. The whole thing is like, if you actually read the government information, it's bad. It's bad. They're testing this stuff out on people, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're unable to protect people properly. It's bad. It's really bad. And they're doing this because they need, if it's a gamble, if mRNA vaccines work, then that gives them an opportunity to open up for DNA vaccines. If DNA vaccines work, that means genetic alterations and mutations of human beings to fit in with their transhumanist agenda is the next step. And that's, like I say, where they want to go for them. They want to be the 7th generation down the line. They want to take the futuristic ones, not the ones that are being given to William Shakespeare over in Britain or whatever. Is
right. Well, the real-time human experimentation is going on a mass scale in front of everyone, and not enough people have noticed that.
It's I thought that I went into the city centre of Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales, just before I left it for Chile in December. And I went into a shop where they sell, earrings and the like, and nose rings, and I was talking to the woman in there, their tattoo place as well, and they were talking about how I broke through to her. I made her realize I wasn't one of, no, number one, I wasn't wearing a mask. That probably helps. She told me you have to wear a mask. And I was like, yes, I've been told I have to wear a mask. Very nice. But that's not going to happen. We're going to continue talking. And we continue talking. And she admitted to me that she had a secret conversation with all her family and her work colleagues. And they'd all sat round a table and agreed together not to have the vaccine and agreed to resist it. But they were too scared to say it out loud. And I think there's a lot of that. So when there's not enough people looking, they're still waiting for the other people to stand up. When I was I don't know if you used to catch the bus to school, but in Britain, when you catch the bus to school, sometimes you don't have school buses. You just get on the public buses, and they go by the school. Well, you'd have loads of people who were from the school, and as we were getting up to the bus stop, no one wanted to be the first to stand up to get on the bus. And over years and years, it's always like one person would jump up at the end, and then one day no one got up for the bus. I like to watch this thing. No one got up, and so we went past the bus stop, and then all of them got up at the same time and looked panicked, like, oh my God, why didn't they stop the bus? Because no one wanted to be the first to do anything, man. No one wants to be the first to enter into it, to look silly in front of it. And it's such a stupid, ego-driven argument to tell yourself the idea that you're so self-important and you're so thing that you'll embarrass yourself in front of all these people who are also so important. If people are people, you just got to say when something's wrong, you got to say it. When someone's doing something bad, you got to say it. And a lot of people are scared about saying things that are really simple, man. It's really simple to say, I'm not going to take that. It's not so easy in Chile because I don't speak Spanish. So I did get stopped the other day by a policewoman who wanted me to put on a mask, and I was tempted just to continue. She was speaking to me in Spanish. I was tempted to continue speaking to her in English, and then we could just have a really long conversation in different languages. But I get bored of that. But it might, like in your own country, it tends to be easier when you can communicate with people just to say no, just not. And a lot of people in Britain are doing that. I mean, there's hope there. I know that if you go to a city centre, you'll still see loads of people droning around with their masks on, being what is being called in Wales wank puffins, which is a brilliant term. They're just going around and they're accepting it, the ones in the city centres, the ones in the big supermarkets. But I went into the city centre, I didn't have to wear a mask. When people talk to me, I just walk past them. When they would go, they were behind a mask going, sorry, you've got to wear a mask. I'd be like, yeah, all right, buddy, whatever. Go about your day. If they're going to rugby tackle me over a mask, let them rugby tackle me over a mask. We'll sort it out like the old-fashioned way. Because if they're gonna get angry with you, then it's their fault, man. They go the wrong way. And every time in Britain, you can't really. The government have been pushing around to people for way too long, and it's always on the edge. It's always on the edge. It's always on breaking point. There's a riot around the corner at some point, and it's coming soon, and it'll be a fantastic one when it does. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's as good a spot to any to close it out. Johnny, thank you. This has been fucking fantastic.
Pleasure, man. Pleasure. I mean, I have to say I'm a nervous boy whenever I first come on anything, but I'm happy to talk about anything. And, And it is. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet like-minded people who've got like a good heart. That's important. And I think
Cheers,
a
man.
lot of your viewers are those people as well, because birds of a feather flock together. That's the same with evil people, same with good people.
You know, I remark from time to time just how rare and fucking wonderful the chat crew is here, and the people that we've just like we've I don't know, man, cultivated a really fucking incredible space here, and uh I don't know, I love the shit out of those guys. I really do. Fantastic. Best
Welcome with
looking
love.
chat in YouTube.
Welcome with love. You'll get love back in return from the people who know how to love, and then you know who to love and who not to love. That's it. It's as simple as that.
Here's hoping. Johnny, please let everybody know where they can find you and where they can find your work, and how they can support you and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll be on. I never really ask for support. I'm terrible like that. I'm just like, you know,
I'm horrible at it too.
I know. I'm at johnnyvedmore.com. A lot of my stories are there. I just link up to the articles that are out there already on other things, usually on an going to be now on Unlimited Hangout, because I'm quite enjoying that realm of investigation. I was already there, and now I'm well into it. But just type in Johnny Vedmore. Even if it's on Spotify, you'll find my music, which I don't often promote as well. I'm not really into it. If you desperately want to donate to someone, you could donate to me, but then you could also like donate to someone who's really, really worthy, man. I'll be all right. I got cheese on toast. I don't need your money. I'll be cool. But yeah, big love, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hell yeah, dude. Thank you for being here. And on the subject of music, I'm buying a banjo tomorrow.
Woo! Yeah.
Another banjo.
That's good. That's good.
One's not enough.
You know, third time's going to be the best, though. if you've got a problem with banjos, just throw more banjos at it. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I have a stringed instrument habit. I do.
I know.
Really, like buying the second banjo will give me an excuse to buy another mandolin, and then maybe start to think about like I could get another electric, but you know, it's
yeah. I'm stuck on the synth at the moment. I'm enjoying having a little synth board and enjoying it, like creating stuff that's from 80s horror movies, you know. feeling the carpenter inside me. But not carpenter in your sense, carpenter in the John Carpenter sense, of course.
The John sense. Yeah. I was there. I got you. I
know.
Folks. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for hanging out. If you have not made your free Rockfin account, go do that damn thing. Rockfin is where you're going to find us when YouTube arbitrarily removes the channel because we told too much truth. If you're inclined, support the show. It's $9.99 a month, and you get access to all of the premium content on Rockfin, including Unlimited Hangout. And Jason Burmis, and there are all kinds of fantastic people. Ryan, Last American Vagabonds over there. Jimmy Doors over there. Richard Medhurst. Nico. It's a wonderful Nico, and I was going there. Nico, Convo Couch, the whole damn crew. Do it. Do the damn thing. You should. Please join us on Saturday for the Free Assange Vigil. Eric Levy, 92-year-old fucking legend, is going to be on with us. Really looking forward to that. Jared Beck returns to the show on Sunday. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. That's going to be flipping awesome. People are going to get so mad. So mad. This is going to, I believe this will be the Tavistock episode. So everyone who doesn't want to hear about how the Beatles were a psyop should probably not show up on Sunday. But don't hate me. Don't hate me. I'm just putting it out there. Fucking thanks, Sleepy Josh, on the ones and twos. Thanks again to Johnny Vedmore. Go check out his stuff. Maybe he'll cup your balls. Maybe
I will.
For old time's sake.
If you want it. If you want it, I'll be here. I got a hand.
We'll see you soon, guys. Good luck to us all.